He's all fine. Butterflies are not found in the Bible. But the symbol of the butterfly has long been used to represent Jesus' life, his death, and his resurrection, and into new life. His life, his death, and his burial in the tomb, and his emergence to new life is much like the life cycle of the butterfly. And it's a symbol of endurance and change and hope and life, transformation. Butterflies are pretty fragile looking creatures, aren't they? Their wings are paper thin, and yet they are strong enough to fly up to 2,500 miles to reach a destination. A monarch butterfly can travel over 100 miles in a single day. Think about 100 miles in a single day. They coast on air currents to save their energy and move more quickly, so they're not only strong, but they're smart. Took us decades to come up with GPS system for our car. But for millennia, butterflies have been navigating from Canada to Mexico and not getting lost, from Europe to Africa, and finding their way. Those who have watched a butterfly emerge from a chrysalis describe the process of witnessing that birth as painful. All that waiting and watching without intervening really tests the will of the observer. There's a wonderful little story about a Native American boy and a butterfly. And so there's this little boy who lived on the reservation, and he spent a lot of time with one of the elders, going every day to his hogan and spending time with him and talking to him and learning from him. And one day he noticed there was a little table inside, and there was this thing on the table. And the little boy asked the elder, what is that? And he said, well, it's a chrysalis, and there's life inside, but you are never to touch it. You may watch it, but you are not to touch it. And so every day, for several weeks, this little boy came and he sat and he watched and he watched and he watched. And one day he noticed that it was starting to wiggle. And he noticed that there was a tiny little hole in it, and it was wiggling and it was wiggling, and he could see the wings inside trying to flex. And he thought, oh, I have to help it. It's not going to live if I don't help it. And so he carefully tore open the chrysalis to help the butterfly emerge. And the butterfly emerged, and it kind of fell out. It was wet and wrinkled and crumpled, and it struggled to move, and it struggled to move, and then it didn't move anymore. And the elder came back, and he took a look at what was on the table, and he said to the boy, you touched it, didn't you? And he was teary, and yeah, he did. He said, you tried to help it, didn't you? I said, I did. And he said, in trying to help the butterfly, you took away its strength. And when you took away its strength, it had to die. Struggles are familiar, aren't they? Nobody in this realm has lived their life without struggle. From the earliest days of our lives, we humans engage in struggle. Learning to walk is a struggle. Toddlers fall many times before they're able to confidently go across the floor. And we watch them struggle to learn how to feed themselves, how to talk, how to ride a bike, learn to read, engage in relationships with other people. And we all remember the struggles of being the teenager. How hard that is, navigating that social network. It's a series of struggles, life, and it's natural. It's part of growing up and becoming independent and self-sufficient. And for many, marrying and having children and starting that life cycle all over again. And for some people, struggles are more intense. Struggles with physical disabilities or mental illness, struggles to control addictions, struggles with self-identity or economic hardship, racism, sexual harassment, or abuse. The list is too long to list all the struggles that so many of us face. Struggles test our strength, and we can feel like we're never going to make it to that other side. And yet when we do, we realize we are so much stronger for the experience. Like the Native American boy, we parents often struggle with helping our own children, don't we? We love them and we do anything for them to not struggle and to have to go through hard times. We too often step in, maybe a little more than is really helpful or really healthy. We want to fix it. We want to make it better. We want to ease the conflict. We want to pave the way. We make up all kinds of excuses about why we do that when they really need to do it themselves. Conflicted, wanting to be the rescuer, the savior instead. We can support and we can encourage, but not do for. They need to strengthen their own wings. They need to fall. They need to skin those knees. They need to struggle and grow stronger. That's how we learn. We can cheer from the sidelines, but not carry them over the finish line. Transformation is a struggle. It's a work that each of us must do to fully become that person that God intended us to be, that person God created us to be. It's important and it's difficult and it's challenging. Shedding the old and birthing the new is hard work, but God creates each one of us intentionally, specifically, particularly, wonderfully, and uniquely. God has a plan. He creates us for this. Hear these words from Psalm 139. God, investigate my life. Get all the facts firsthand. I'm an open book to you. Even from a distance, you know what I am thinking. You know when I leave and when I get back. I am never out of your sight. You know everything I'm going to say before I start the first sentence. You look behind me, I look behind me and you're there, and I look ahead and you're there too. Your reassuring presence coming and going, it's so wonderful I can hardly take it in. Yes, you shaped me first inside and then out. You formed me in my mother's womb. I thank you, high God. You are breathtaking. Body and soul, I am marvelously made, and I worship you in adoration. What a creation. You know me inside and out. You know every bone in my body. You know exactly how I was made, bit by bit, how I was sculpted from nothing into something amazing. And like an open book, you watched me grow from conception to birth. All the stages of my life were spread out before you. All the days of my life all prepared, even before I lived one day. God has a plan for us. As we are being made, God has a plan and a purpose for each of us. And we need to ask ourselves, are we who God created us to be? Is there more work to do? Have we achieved our complete transformation? I know there's more work for me to do, more for me to learn areas in my life, my personal life, my relationships, my work as a pastor. It's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. And sometimes I can be a little lazy and think, oh, that's good enough. I'm pretty good enough. But good enough isn't what God has in mind. Kind of like the army, be all that you can be. All that you can be, all that God had in mind for you. Transformation is growing into that. And it's a lifelong process. Just like the butterfly's transformation from the egg to the caterpillar to the butterfly, we go through all these significant changes as we seek all God intends us to be. When we think about change, it can be daunting. Change is difficult. It can be scary. The chaos in the process is messy. And you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Who knows what will happen? Who knows what the results will be? God knows. God already knows. And the church is no different. Change and transformation within a church is especially difficult because it involves so many diverse people, an entire group of individuals. And there's so much deeply entwined in the church with tradition that's beloved by a faithful group of people, and lots of opinions. So church change and transformation is hard, and for many it's unsettling. There could be small changes. I'm not sure God cares too much about them. The pastor's new. It's a woman. That's new, that's different. She'll probably want to do things differently. What if she wants to change worship? We've always done it this way. We've never done it that way. The hymns are too old. The praise music's too new. The choir doesn't wear robes. Where are the robes? The bulletin board was moved. There's stuff on the altar. Kids run up the aisle. There's a television screen in the sanctuary. And I heard there's a possibility of a rainbow being hung, I don't know, somewhere. Let's remember, the church's purpose is to do God's work in a certain place and time. The changes that seem so important and significant probably don't occupy too much of God's attention. That's doing church. I think God's more interested in transformative work. How are we as a church transforming the lives of people? How are we as a church transforming the way people live or how they feel? How loved do they feel? How are we helping people to know God more deeply? If change is scary, transformation is terrifying because it happens first on the inside. Change on the outside can be switched back. This can all go away. Transformation takes you from one form into another, an incarnation into something new, something more. It's elemental. It's metamorphosis. God cares about what's happening on the inside. God has a plan for us, each of us, for who we are to be. And God has a plan for this church and who we are to be as church. Before God knew you, you were uniquely and wonderfully made. Before he set your heart to beating, before he blew your first breath into your lungs, he had a plan and knew exactly who you are and what his plans would be for you and how you fit in his world. Who are you? Are you all you can be? What is God's plan for you? Who knows? God knows. And there's still time. There's still transformative work to do. What might God still be waiting and watching and willing you to be or do? Our transformation into the fullness of God's vision is an exciting process. Imagine just what God has envisioned for you, planned for you. Loves you so much, he has a plan for every single one of us. It's amazing. Amazing what God has intended for us to do in this life, who to be in this life. How might we be agents of transformation in the lives of our neighbors, near and far, and here in this neighborhood? Just imagine. Surrender yourself to God's transformative plan and make that so. Amen.